Welcome back to the Win with Dice podcast, a podcast featuring members of the Win with Dice team. I'm Calvin, and I'm joined here by Ramon.
Hey guys, if this is your first time listening to the Win with Dice podcast, this is a podcast all about tabletop RPGs, running them and playing them. Calvin and I like to take a casual approach to the game and the hobby, and we just like to share our stories as players and as GMs, so you guys can jump in the hobby if you're not already in, and if you are, maybe you can take the next step and become the GM of your table.
Exactly. We like to talk about games that we're in and that we're running, and hopefully make it seem like the other side of the GM screen is a little less obscure. Now this week we wanted to talk about a game system that Ramon is working on, that I'm very excited to hear about because I didn't get to join in that playtest. As well, just a quick update on the OGL stuff that we were talking about towards the beginning of the year. Just some shifts that happened. This is probably going to be the last update for a while, but there is something major that happened, and I just wanted to cover it real quick. But before we get to all of that, we have to get to the most important part of the show, the Win with Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week.
Yeah, the Win with Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week, brought to you by Calvin. Thanks, Calvin.
Yes, indeed. So this is a conversation that just happened earlier today. I was running a game over the weekend. That's why I wasn't in that playtest. But so one of my very early sessions that I ran for my Crown of Dragons group, it was like the second plot thread or second adventure basically that I put them on. I had borrowed a lot of it from the Crown of the Kobold King series, parts 1 and 2 of it specifically.
Yeah.
And it had, as a result, it had given me like some setting stuff, some ideas that I could work with that I've sort of adapted into my world, a whole lot of things that I changed the names of to fit, and some NPCs that are left over that have been influenced by the party. But they didn't know that it had happened until very recently when one of them was looking at some new releases for Pathfinder 2e, and apparently there's like a new release of that series for Pathfinder 2e, and they were reading the summary and realized, hey, that sounds pretty familiar.
Hey, wait a minute. Are they still Calvin's game?
I actually went through something similar because there's a channel on YouTube that's doing like D&D YouTubers playing Pathfinder, and I was listening to a bit of that, and I was listening to one of the adventures they were doing, and I was like, that sounds super familiar for some reason. Oh, right. This is what it's supposed to be without the serial numbers filed up.
Yeah.
So yeah. I was just thinking, like, that's still a very, like, useful thing to do. I mean, especially for starting out, like, I don't regret doing that because it gave me some ideas that still to this day I can work with, and it helped me build up the confidence to start, making up my own thing entirely. I think if you use like a written thing, you're still going to have to adapt it to your players anyways. So I do think that is a good place to start if that's the sort of, I mean, like there's a million places to start, but that was sort of where I came from. And I still think that's a very useful idea, a very useful place to branch off of.
Yeah. I mean, it's always good to, if you're brand new and you're the shiniest new GM, it's good to start with pre-made content and just kind of change some names around and move some stuff around, because again, like where you're starting in your campaign is never close to where you end in your campaign.
Not usually, yeah.
No, yeah. Like even a couple sessions, later could be far off from what you're initially doing. So don't worry about it. You could just take pre-written adventures, even parts of pre-written adventures I've taken as well, to just use those ideas, use like, the combat stuff that like, you don't have to calculate yourself or worried about it. Just like grab them, slap them in your game, and you're good to go. Yeah,
there's definitely like even traps and encounters and stuff. If you want to take this out, there's a trap in those two adventures that I used that I didn't come up in the game because I remade the dungeon map, but I've had it in the back of my mind because it was a very cool concept. So
yeah, there you go, folks. There's your Win with Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week.
Yeah. Steal stuff.
Be bandits.
Basically. Okay, so let's get into some news, I suppose. This one's going to be a bit shorter than all the other times I covered this previously, but like we had been talking about before, Wizards of the Coast was looking at revoking the original open gaming license, and this is the thing that gave people the rights to use D&D content to make their own content. Of course, originally what they were talking about with their They wanted to revoke 1.0a and introduce 1.1, which had a bunch of stuff people didn't like, including like monetization of people's revenue, the possibility that people could lose the rights to their own content, that could be revoked from them for no reason given. A lot of stuff that made people uncomfortable. So WotC came back with a proposed 1.2, as well as polls and like different things people could communicate to them with, just to say how they felt about the upcoming changes. They still had wanted to repeal or revoke 1.0a, largely in regards to like doing stuff with virtual work that's 1.0 allowed to exist in a way that they weren't really comfortable with. They also gave the excuse of like, you know, wanting to make the community a bit more what were the terms they used? I'm trying to remember the exact specific wording, but it was just about like community safety and diversity and that sort of thing, just using that as an excuse of why they wanted to better repeal 1.0a. But again, people responded rather quickly to that. The poll with regards to 1.2 was supposed to be up until like February, but it went up for just like a few days, and then I think the response was pretty clear. So like a week or so later, there was this immediate response showing that people still weren't happy with the proposed 1.2 version of the OGL or the virtual tabletop policy that was included with it, and they just wanted to work with 1.0a as usual. Otherwise it would cause like significant shifts to how their business would work.
Yeah, so basically it's like the answer is do nothing, WotC.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Which, I mean, like if they did something like, I don't know what I don't know if what the legal terms would be, but like if they did like an amendment to it and just don't actually change any verbiage in I'm gonna mess up this acronym again.
The OGL.
The OGL. Thanks, Colin. And just add in the stipulation of all of those. If they really just wanted to add the stipulation of like, you know, they want to protect, the community from, bad actors, then they can just amend it. I'm pretty sure that no court or anything would be like, no, you can't add in a clause that's saying like, you know, bad people are bad, don't do bad things.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I feel like they could have made some small changes
right?
to the original document
Exactly.
instead of overhauling the whole thing, but they would have to revoke it in certain ways so that the previous document wouldn't apply. It was a bit of a weird legal thing for them, I guess, that they just wanted it out of the way to, I mean, a lot of people think they wanted it out of the way to better monetize the community and their own future stuff, but I can get into that in a bit.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that they can they can definitely create another document that references the OGL. I'm gonna. I hate hacking.
I know where you're getting OLG from, and I completely understand.
Damn you, Ontario.
However, they did do something. It seems that I don't know if you've caught it on social media, but there is a sense of elation in the air because the community is under the impression that they have won. Freedom for America, freedom for France, and all that. So what they have decided...
S in chat for freedom. That's what it is.
What they have stated is that the OGL 1.0a is going to remain in place and untouched at this point. Because again, they took that poll down early and they showed some of the responses that they got to it. And again, the majority of people did not like even the 1.2. Which had removed like some of those monetization ideas and things like that. So what the plan is now is that 1.0a is going to remain in place, but additionally, the system reference document, which is like the actual system rules, SRD 5.1, which is the 5e rules, is now going to be under a Creative Commons license. And this is a license that's not controlled by WotC. This is going to be like a more permanent, irrevocable license. Specifically, it's CC by 4.0 for anybody who wants to look that up. But essentially what it means is that people are allowed to make adapted material of things under that license, under the condition that attribution and credit be given. I believe there are still some... Actually, no, there aren't. So originally, there were some specificities on like what counted as brand identity. So like people couldn't use certain settings and things like that were published by WotC. And there's some discussion. I have to look at the document again because I just kind of briefly skimmed it. But there was some discussion on to how that was applied here, and I think people were saying that it wasn't present in this document the same way it was previously, which is funny because they mentioned Strahd in the document, but they didn't say what specifically in the document was part of brand identity. So people could conceivably use at least the name Strahd from the from that adventure.
So it probably is something like you can't have Strahd do the exact same things that Strahd in their adventure does, but you probably could just use the name Strahd, and it could also be a vampire, because I don't think that they can tell you that you can't name a vampire Strahd.
Yeah.
Or like Dr. Strahd. You know what I mean? Like
I think it really would have helped him out if he had focused on his degree instead of all that villainous stuff.
Dr. Strahd.
So
no, wait, that's Dr. Vampire. Wait a minute. I was like, Strahd used to have a ray gun, and I was like, why? Oh yes,
because it's Dr.
Dracula.
Dr. Dracula, yeah, the greatest villain who ever lived.
Yeah.
So far, only the current system reference document applies. It's not been applied to previous or future versions, at least from what I personally have seen. So the 5e environment is going to remain largely as it is. I don't know, but I doubt they're going to do anything about like 3.5 or anything like that. Like I know there's people who publish stuff under that, like who do like old school stuff, but I don't think that's a really concern for WotC or Hasbro. I think it's more future versions of the game that they're going to be concerned with. Part of me suspects that what they've been calling 1D&D is going to end up being called 6th edition or something like it.
Yeah. I know, like, eventually, like, you have to change the number. Like, you know, the Fast and Furious franchise is, you know, they're getting pretty up there now. I think they have stopped using, like, the numerical value, right?
I mean, they were never consistent with it.
Okay.
The third one didn't have a number. The fourth one didn't have a number.
But then they started using the numbers again, didn't they?
The 9th one had a number. The 10th one has X in the title. I know too much about Fast and Furious.
It's not Fast and Furious 10, it's Fast and Furious X.
Yeah, it's Fast X.
Fast X. Oh, okay, cool. Awesome. Yeah, so, I mean, you could call it 6th edition. Whatever the edition they call it, it doesn't matter.
So,
although I guess you could just be Infinite Edition because, you know.
Whatever they want to call it. Yeah, like, I think there's still some reasonable suspicion here that stuff under whatever the newest version of the game is might still be a bit more restricted. I don't know if they're going to push as far as they did with their 1.1 changes that they had proposed before.
Yeah.
But I think there's still an amount of healthy suspicion there. But, I mean, as it stands right now, they have put the 5e stuff out in a way that they can't really revoke, because they kind of published it, like, right away.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, too, right? I think it's very funny because even if they push out a new game now, and maybe they drastically change the game or something, and like they know that, like they attempted with 4E, and you know this kind of, and if like let's speculate a little bit, and
Sure.
they get a pretty big backlash, not even just because of like the game not being what people want, but because the company is not doing the things that people want, and you know people start being like, oh, we could just keep playing 5e.
Yeah.
like we did back in the day when you know they jumped to 4th and people just kept with 3.5, and then Pathfinder came out of there, right? So it's like, you know, I think that would be cool if that happened. It would be bad if that happened for D&D, but we also got Pathfinder out of it, so maybe this bad thing that's happening now would get another cool RPG out of this that can be like, aha, or just Pathfinder makes Pathfinder better.
Yeah, maybe. Like, that's exactly what they don't want, though. Like, they don't want, because 1.0a, it allowed Pathfinder to happen. They don't want another Pathfinder. What they also don't want is they don't want, like, you know how Pathfinder has archives of Nethys? You can basically play Pathfinder for free through a website that isn't even part of Paizo. Like, WotC doesn't really want that either. They want you to come through their sites, their systems to use their rules.
But they can't copyright rules. There's no way for any company to copyright rules at this moment until the laws change, right? Which would be sucky for everyone. Everyone should revolt into the streets because then big business will take over. But just like so, there's no way for them to really stop people from just having the raw rules, even the raw stat blocks of like Strahd. Like they can't tell you that you can't get Strahd's stat block. They can tell you can't get Strahd's backstory without purchasing something, right? Like it's the creative written work of those, like, the game, like the lore and that kind of stuff, and the adventures they can copyright, all those written stuff, but not the actual stat blocks and numbers and abilities and crap.
They can't copyright rolling a die and adding a number. They can maybe like, you can debatably do something with the expression of that, but the pure mechanic of it, no,
it's always the context of the story that they're really just copyrighting the story of what they can tell with the game, right? So I think but they can't copyright the rules right now in America.
Yeah, but like specifically, I do think we will see some more exclusive stuff when it comes to their new system, because again, we have seen that they said D&D is under monetized. They do want it to be a billion-dollar brand, or like I and the people who are in charge at WotC and at Hasbro, largely at WotC, like they have experience in the digital gaming community, so they want to apply more digital gaming monetization to that, like the sort of repetitive spending that you see with games, like the season passes, the DLCs, the microtransactions, things like that.
Yeah. All of the poo-poo parts of games.
Indeed.
I actually was watching a couple of videos kind of like on the topic. It was a while since I watched this, but apparently there's going to be, they're looking at doing tiered systems, and it's like, and for GMs to have homebrew content put into their stuff, then they need to pay, they basically just have to pay the extra tier, like be like not just the base tier. So you have to pay a special amount extra to make your own stuff, which is like, I think primarily the way that everyone plays these games is with some sort of homebrew content. If you just have to play a game raw because WotC tells you to, then it's like it's like you have to pay more to have the privilege you already had. It's very strange.
Yeah, and I mean, I think they at one point tried to deny certain allegations, but they were kind of worded very specifically with regards to like recurrent monetization, like having a $30 a month thing. There's a post on D&D Beyond about it somewhere that I can't find at the moment, but
and I believe they were also looking at using AI generated DMs, so you could play D&D solo, which I mean
you already can.
Yeah, I was like, but like I think so my initial thought was like, oh man, that sounds like a corpo thing to corp. But I mean, the idea of AI, like you just want to hang out and play, you can just do that with a video game, right?
Yeah.
Why don't they just make video games with AI that you can just log in and play through like the Sword Coast stuff, right? Like, why do they need to make it so it's like, oh, it's like in this virtual tabletop system? They could just go pay a video game developer to develop a video game and just put out tons of domes. They could just keep making Baldur's Gates.
Yeah.
Right? Like, why aren't they just more games like Baldur's Gates, but with this new AI generated stuff? You don't need it to be like, a robot playing a game, and then they could put out a game. That's another revenue stream. I don't know. I just wish they would just put more content and good stuff out there that isn't like, oh, you have all this other cool free stuff that you can do and freedom. No, you have to pay for it now.
Yeah. Like depending on like what they even try to do or what they say going forward, the fact that they still try to do certain things with the 1.1. Like they still try to take part of people's revenue and had conditions in there that made it seem like they were going to be able to take people's content and things like that. This, like they were trying to do what they thought they could get away with, really. And like they got pushed back on it, and it's cool that the 5e rules are all like Creative Commons now, and that can't be changed because this is something that's like, it's not just WotC that uses it. It's still like I think it would be hard as a publisher to trust WotC again. Although whether their market dominance is going to be shifted at all, I don't know, and I mean that's going to be a big factor in what a publisher puts out.
I do hope so, because I think the community as a whole, people aren't gonna stop playing tabletop RPGs. They're just gonna find something else. And like, as much as I, don't want people's hard work to go to waste at WotC, but I think that any commercial stream or whatever, any sector, I want there to be diversity. If you don't want monopolies, I mean, all corporations want to be monopolies, but as a consumer, I don't want monopolies. So I'd rather, WotC fuck up and then tank a little bit, so other tabletop RPGs can be like, I can fill this niche a little bit better, so the playing field's even. Yeah. Right.
Which is why I'm glad we have the Orc still, like the Paizo's license that they're working on, because that applies more specifically to tabletop RPGs, whereas the Creative Commons stuff is more of a general thing. As well, there was a fact that I saw. One, I was looking at the popularity of the Pathfinder 2 subreddit and how it like spiked up at one point, but also apparently Paizo had like supplies of books for like 8 months, and those sold out in like 2 weeks.
That's what I mean, right? Like, it's just good. It's good business to have everybody kind of like even, and then that means that even though Paizo's getting more of the market share, there's still going to be more competition for Dungeons & Dragons. It just means they have to pay people more to get the best. They can't just use their market share to do business like corporation stuff, right? Yeah. So just more competition is always better everywhere, right? Yeah.
And hopefully Paizo pays people well as well.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's what I mean. It's like we just need like the only option for you to work in tabletop RPGs is to work at at Wizards of the Coast. Then it's like they can really dictate what your pay is, right? So we just need more people, more companies. Yeah.
So hopefully we get to see other people starting to play more games.
Yeah, I think there's been a huge spike of like you said, D&D players playing Pathfinder. Like it's like, it feels like a BuzzFeed video. It's like try British snacks or some crap like that. It's just like, dude, you should play other games. Can't just keep playing Dungeons & Dragons all day. Go play Lancer. That's the end. Yeah, need more people in that community. Oh, speaking of Lancer, I know that they just published an adventure. I was gonna say an adventure, a mission quest thing. I don't know what it's called in Lancer anymore. It's been a while. But it's supposed to be like kind of like not like a one. I think it's supposed to be a one shot. For new tables or new GMs out there for Lancer, and it's published by Massive Press, so it's like official. I think it's written by Kaitave and 2 other people I'm not familiar with. But
Operation Solstice Reign.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, it's got the cool one-eye robot mech on the cover, so I was like, yes, this is perfect. Shit's blowing up, looks bad. I want to jump in my robot and go deal with it. So actually, I might run that. I think I might run that game.
Gasp.
Because gasp. I finally update on Lancer. I know I've told you guys that I'm gonna do it. So I'll tell you update real quick. I finally got my personal laptop up and running, and I got Foundry. So now it's time to just populate it with all the stuff I need, and then we should be good to go in a couple weeks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hopefully Solstice comes with the CompCon stuff. I got to read through the tweets. I saw them tweeting earlier today, but I was supposed to be working, so I didn't stop to read it.
Yeah, I don't think I saw any of the LCP files updated yet, so it may take a while to get to CompCon. So I'm just chilling. I'm just gonna read through this story and see what's it looking like. I literally downloaded it today and I was like, I'll read this later.
Fair enough.
Go back to work.
All right, and yeah, I'll share the itch.io page for it below as well. All right, so Ramon, let's have a chat about Grand Saga, or the Saga system. We'll see what the name ends up being, but
the GS system. GSS. That'd be cool.
That sounds cool. But yeah, you ran a playtest over the weekend, so how did that go?
It went well. It was pretty good, actually. We got got some people from the Tim Delver's crew to join in and help me out with a little playtest encounter for Grand Saga, which is super awesome. I don't even know where to start. Explain.
Well, okay, we'll just explain what the system is, and then the characters, and then what happened.
Yeah, okay. So, like we mentioned before, Grand Saga is like a D12 system. So everyone's stats are what they are, and you basically just have to roll underneath it. And as well as there's classes, there's a bunch of classes you could choose, and a bunch of abilities you could choose from those classes. And yeah, I don't know. There's the idea is that you would be comboing classes with each other with different aspects, and the way it works is just like a 3-action system. So you can choose which actions you want to do in whichever order. You can't repeat. But essentially, it's supposed to kind of, I guess, narrow it down. It's supposed to be easy to run, but like tactically and narratively rewarding. So grid-based combat, similar to like Icon and Lancer, definitely really been influenced by the mechanics of those games. But also just it's a little bit, I would say it wasn't quick when we played, because obviously it's the first time people playing, but the idea is that turns should be really quick, and it should feel more dynamic and super easy to play, and not a lot of numbers going back and forth, really. Yeah, so I had so we had 3 players, and we didn't really do like the narrative stuff, but the idea of the scenario was there were these civilians that were kidnapped, and their job was to rescue them. So they were able to I started them off being like the bad guys had the kidnapped victims like on a trail, and the players were ambushing them on this trail, and the trail kind of went through this like between 2 hills, so they had like just like a little valley or a little dip between these 2 hills. So I had the players be just basically just show up and catch them and just try and fight them.
Okay, how'd the fight go?
So let me talk about the NPC. So the Grand Saga is set in like a fantasy future kind of setting. So fantasy, there's swords and sorcery, but also there's like robots and guns, almost like I would say akin to like Final Fantasy, like that kind of genre, at least to like the later or the more recent entries, or I guess past like Final Fantasy 6, Final Fantasy 7. So, you know, there's still Cloud Strife with his big sword, but also dudes with guns. So the bad guys had a big mech unit kind of in the front that had like a big demolisher hammer, and they had a big mechanical orb that was that's like, you know, run by a fire elemental. There was a knight with a big shield, there was a wizard, there was a pyromancer, and a commander who was like, kind of like a paladin. But so these guys were kidnapping these 3 victims, which have no names. They're nameless, faceless victims at this point. And on the player side, we had it's so weird talking about a game that like I've been in my head for so long. It's like, how do I tell people how cool it is? We had a gunslinger. One of our friends, Chibi, was playing a gunslinger, and so that class has the idea of that class is that you have a lot of quick actions or lots of repeatable actions, and you have a lot of range attacks, but they're close range. So it's kind of like you're rapidly firing your handgun or pistol or revolver. Quack was playing a Titan Wrestler, which is a class that is all about like suplexing people, being bigger than people, like grabbing them, grappling them and disabling them, which was I'll tell you, it got really fun with that character. And then Corey was playing a hybrid class. So in Grandbankss at first level, you can just dual class right away. You don't have to wait or anything like that. So yeah, so Corey comboed a Red Witch and a White Witch. Red Witch being like the person whose sole purpose is to put a bunch of debuffs on people, like status ailments, and really ruin their day. And the White Witch, which is these almost like, I guess, akin to like a cleric or like a White Witch from Final Fantasy, where it's like they're the healers, they're the support people, but they also have abilities that are able to target anybody on the battlefield regardless of line of sight, which Corey used to great effect, or pretty good effect. And so the fight went pretty cool. As far as like highlights goes, Corey used, again, I just mentioned that he comboed the White Witch's ability Divine, which is like an incantation, which basically is like a modifier that you put onto magic attack or a magic technique. And you can basically add a special ability, like augment that attack or ability or action with that special effect. So Divine lets you target somebody without line of sight anywhere on the battlefield because God's doing it. And he applied that to Hex, which basically lets him choose from a bunch of debuffs to apply to a character. So he tried to use he used it to target a bunch of people on the battlefield. We found out that so Chibi's build with her gunslinger, she used draw, which I believe is an attack action, which if it hits, it only does 1 damage, regardless if it hits or misses. But if she does hit, she's able to get quickened, which is basically like haste, so she gets an extra action, which means, and she's also playing a gunslinger, which they have a mechanic called grit. So every round they gain 1 grit, and they can spend that grit to repeat an attack on a hit. So basically she comboed a lot. She was able to repeat her draw immediately if she wanted to with grit and possibly hit. She was already quickened, so she got an extra action. So everyone starts off with 3 actions. She basically went from 3 to 4, as well as she had 2 reactions she chose for her other 2 abilities, where ricochet shot, so which means she can repeat by spending a reaction on her turn. She can repeat an attack that already hit to another target within the same range, from obviously choosing from the target that got hit, right? So it's like you shoot and the bullet ricochets off of that target onto the other target. So, you know, by spending 1 action and a reaction, she could really, and a grit, she can do 3 attacks at 2 different targets, which is kind of wild. Which, you know, having it in motion is kind of crazy to me because, you know, obviously, like, I made these rules and it's like, oh yeah, this seems kind of cool, but actually having it combo out was kind of wild to me. And yeah, so she, like, her and Corey were at one end, and Quack's character, Big Blue Man, was at the other end. And essentially, they were plicking away at this robot's armor. Robots, they don't have a lot of HP, but they have tons of armor, so, you know, it's hard to, if you're able to chew through that armor, you're able to get to the core of the robot and take it out. And they were basically just kind of dealing with that thing, while on the other end, Quack, being a Titan wrestler, he's basically just really good at grappling. Like, if you ever think of like Zangief or any other grapplers in fighting games, that like the character plays like that. So I believe he grappled the big giant orb and just kind of held it there for us. He was going to try to use an ability called Hurl on it, but I think the defender, the knight with the big shield, was able to get up there and knock him away, so they stopped being adjacent. The fight kind of went on. I'm trying to think of like anything that was particularly cool, other than the one thing that Quack's character did. But essentially, the fight ended up being that Quack's character, the Titan wrestler, picked up one of the defender units, like defender with a big shield, and hurled them off the map. Literally with the ability Hurl that has, like, if you're familiar with Lancer, it has like a thing called knockback, which basically is like if the attack hits, you get to move that character that many spaces, right? But additionally, it has the characteristics of launch, which is like for my game where it's like knockback. You're obviously being forcefully moved, but you get to ignore any terrain or anything. You basically just get like, Team Rocket blasted out. So he was able to grapple the defender, Big Shield Knight, and just yeet him off the map. I think that where he was standing, the edge of the map was 9 spaces away, and because the combination of a special weapon he was using and his attack and his hurl ability, he was able to just yeet him 10 spaces away right off the map. The hurl does do damage too, and I think I calculated it to be like the enemy would take 1 damage. I would still have 1 HP, but I was like, no, that dude's not gonna come back to the fight. He's just gonna lay there.
Maybe if I don't move, they'll think I'm unconscious.
Yeah, right. So then I think I made the mistake. Well, not a mistake, but I was like, this fight's kind of coming to a close. Maybe I'll try out this character, the paladin guy. So the paladin guy, the leader, walks up to Quack's character, the big blue man, and then he proceeded to get yeeted on his turn, which was yeeted on Quack's turn. So that was pretty funny. On the other side of the fight, I believe the other 2 gang, Corey's Red Witch, White Witch, and Chibi's Gunslinger were able to take down the big Demolisher robot, but the Floating Eye fire elemental robot flew off, decided like this wasn't worth it, so it just left the battlefield, and there was a pyromancer who was basically standing in front of Quack's character, ready to be yeeted off the map, decided like, no, I'll just leave on my own accord, thank you.
I'll throw myself, thank you.
yeah, which is pretty cool. I mean, it was fun to see players using the rules. I haven't ran too many games of Grand Saga, but it was good. It was interesting. I think I will put in a rule where if characters do get yeeted off the map, they can come back. Like, I'll explicitly say it, because I think the idea of like you throwing somebody and clipping off the borders is pretty funny and kind of unique. So I'm gonna have to figure out some rules on that one.
Yeah. Because I mean, the world still exists there. It's just not on the map.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Like maybe you just have to take a turn to get back onto the battlefield from some angle, if like that's the case. But it was awesome.
Yeah.
I think
that's cool. Like again, like what I really like about this system, and we should have a link to the alpha thing below, the alpha playtest below, is that like, again, you have all these classes and they have all these unique abilities, and you can decide whether you want to invest all in one or mix up 2 or mix something with an item to create abilities that you wouldn't normally have, and then let them combo together in unique ways, and then combo together with your party. Like that's the thing that I really like about this. It's just it feels like you have a ton of options and what you want to do.
Yeah, and I do really want to put the freedom to the players to kind of find the cool combos and synergies and stuff like that, right? Like most of the classes are built to work within themselves, as well as their abilities are cross classes. So just because of the way that it's the game's language is designed, so if you have a melee attack and you can grab like an arts, which is similar to an incantation, which is like an augment onto a melee attack, or essentially, or you can grab that or any sort of passive abilities to melee attacks to really make your character feel like their own thing, right? And I believe we're up to 32 classes, something silly like that. So the possibilities are quite they're a lot.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a number, but I'm not gonna figure it out.
Yeah, it's a big number, and so nobody should ever make the same character. I don't think so. I think there's probably stuff that's just better. Like I think I might have to revisit the Titan Wrestler's hurl ability, because by far I think it's the best ability that the Titan Wrestler has, and maybe the best ability in the game. Or at least the most rewarding. I mean, tossing somebody like 10 spaces off of a map is pretty funny, and I don't really know how to top that.
Well, that's what playtesting is for. It's how you find the balance.
Yeah. So yeah, if you guys check out the playtest, I would love to hear what your thoughts, and tell me how broken some stuff is, because I would like to know.
Yeah,
it would be nice. Yeah, I did find that actually running some NPCs for the first time, that they might need to be altered a little bit. I think they might need to have a little bit more actions than they do at first level, but again, it's up to the GM, because the way that the I guess the tiers of NPCs are they're all just they work by, you have a base, which is basically, are you a human, are you an elemental, or are you a beast? So you can idea what those themes are. Or I said humanoid, sorry, not human. And then it layers on top of it, like, are you a fighter? Are you a monster? Are you a robot, right? And then it's like, you can then stack templates to make more unique major enemies, which are kind of like the elites of the game. And then bosses are a third level of templates that you add on top of it, that are kind of based on the base that you chose. And you can, like, keep stacking stuff up to make the fight as difficult, or that NPC as difficult as you want, essentially.
Yeah, again, like, that's the same sort of system that the players have in a way. Yeah, I kind of feel like I want to take a try at running this, or at least so you can get a chance to see how it feels if someone else is running it, and maybe if you're playing it as well.
Oh yes, please. The more that I can get my hands away from it and have other people's inputs, I think is the best way to grow. Because at this point, I mean, all the words on the page are all mine, all of my ideas, and I don't know if they're right. So yeah. I mean, it'd be fun, because so far everyone's just been a player. I want to see what a DM's perspective is.
Yeah, and I think people might be interested in, like, just the perspective of you making a game and seeing what the process of that is. You kind of got me wanting to make a game. I think I should just I should make the Fast and Furious RPG. That's what I should do.
Class is dumb. I don't know. There might be some copyright stuff in that, but you could definitely just make a car goes fast and you punch dudes game.
I legit would want a street racing RPG, but I would probably make something a lot more simple. You have a better mind for, like, mechanical stuff. I think I would just take, like, something narrative, like Caltrop Core or something like that, and then just do something with that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you just have to conceptualize the idea of, like, what a race is.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you're not, like, you have to, like, I don't think it would be that hard, because it would just be like, your cars are your equipment and the race is the actual encounter. So then it's like, you just have a cycle of, like, you build cars to win races so you can build cars, right? Infinitely, until the Yakuza show up, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Then you have to drift down a mountain, or else, you're gonna go to jail. And
you're gonna be banished from Japan.
Yeah, those are the stakes. Shout out to the not number 3 Fast and Furious Tokyo Drifts.
Technically the 7th.
Technically the 7th in the chronological order of Furious Fastness.
I mean, if we're going chronologically, it's like the 9th, but...
Oh, my bad.
Because there's also the spin-offs and the... I know too much about Fast and Furious.
Maybe we should just do an episode of just Calvin Explains Fast and Furious. That would be kind of cool. And yeah, actually, okay, well, we'll put a pin in that one. But actually, I think maybe I should talk about Grand Saga a little bit more. Maybe I'll just take a class in every episode, take like 5 minutes out of the episode, and be like, this is what this class does, and that's at least 32 entries. So I can.
That's a fun idea, actually.
Yeah, because there's some new ones too that I think are. There's obviously, like, things that are, I guess, culturally relevant, like. There is a archer, right? You can't really have a game with swords and sorcery without dude with bow.
Exactly.
Right? So there's things like that, but there's also cool stuff like the Hyperion, which is like a sorcerer who taps into hyperspace and does a lot of cool string theory stuff. So it just kind of breaks the Hyperion just breaks the game. It says, I don't need your 2D game. I'm playing 3D.
Cool. I'm gonna multi-class Archer Hyperion.
And it would work, I'm pretty sure. I wouldn't even doubt it. I'm pretty sure it would work perfectly fine. You're gonna do the big damage, but yeah, cool things like that. I would like to highlight of the game and then get people's feedback on, like, is the Hyperion cool? Am I just kind of crazy? Please let me know in the comments below.
Yeah, so we'll have a link to that, and as well, if you want to leave a comment here or on our Twitter or on our website, you can definitely drop a comment there. But I think that might be it for this episode. Anything else you want to add about Grand Saga before we spin off into the outro?
No, actually, yeah. I don't know. I'm really excited. It's like I'm a dude who's like a build crafter, so I want to see what people who are like, other people's opinions would be like. Yeah, this is the most damage you could put out in this game. I want to see those dudes. So, yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. All right. Well, if you're interested, there will be a link to the alpha document below, and as well with regards to the OGL stuff, we'll have linked to all the sources of. Anything that you might find useful, just to quickly learn about the updates about what's going on. I'll have that link below as well. Also, our social medias that you can check out, as well as the Twitter for Win with Dice, where I gotta do some updating on the Dungeon 23 stuff before this episode comes out, because that's gonna be the end of the month.
Calvin. I was actually perusing and being like, wait a minute, Calvin didn't put out his thing.
I have been remarkably busy.
This is true.
But, hopefully by the time this is out, I'll at least have got January done. Also, if you're scrolling down, you can check out the links to all the awesome people we've had on the show, including Kai, actually. Links to their stuff that they've worked on for Lancer. Go ahead and check those out. And also, if you're around the channel, check out the gaming streams. Trying to do them weekly, trying to keep up the schedule. We've got some Gotham Knights, we've got some Skyrim, we got some Mass Effect 2, and maybe Dead Space will make a return, depending on how things go. Basically, depending on if Dead Space 2 goes on sale.
You hear that, Steam?
As well, we got other stuff on the channel, like the shorts and the Dungeon 23 videos, so please go ahead and check those out. But I think that's gonna be it for now. Any last things to say before we head off into space?
Like and subscribe. We never say that.
Yeah,
we nice.
You should really say it up top.
Yeah, we never remember. We're just too excited to talk to you folks. That's what it is.
All right. Well, for all of our Titan Wrestling GMs and players out there, just remember to keep on winning with dice, and we'll see you next time.
Okay. Bye, guys.